Hey, it's Chris, crowdfunding roundup. You know, some days you just don't feel like filming, you know? You just don't feel like this is not one of those days. Yeah, this is going to be a good one. You ready? Let's go. Rants, rambles, raves, crowdfunding roundup, all in one. I love this. Let's do it. Okay, you know I was going to start with it, right? Grimcoven. Grimcoven's here, 6,000 backers, $1.2 million. I'll say right from the beginning, there is no rule book. I'm a little bit unhappy about that. The other thing that concerns me is that you have prototypes that are sent out with very limited aspects of gameplay, very limited scope. People saying that they're not using all of the cards or not being able or sort of having to use them in a certain arrangement predetermined. And so that concerns me because it tells me that this game isn't fully fleshed out. And they say, even in the first update, that that's okay. Don't worry, we're going to base it off of a lot of your recommendations and your thoughts and your critiques, which is both good and worrisome at the same time. Because you guys know how sometimes crowdfunding comment sections aren't always the most, you know, and again, I'm not going to say negative, but I'm going to say in this case, squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I was just doing the look back video for Stalker, and Stalker's pledge manager literally closes over this weekend. And the thing that I am going to talk about here with this is the fact that Stalker's final rule book was literally over a year in the making after the crowdfunding campaign finished. And so that worries me if you're making changes, you're making dynamic differences up until that point. Again, not because it's going to be bad. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if you're looking at this and you think you're getting this product right now with any of this boss battling, dynamic, combo-driven, card-tastic, boss battling, destroying their attacks to win the game, a la a Kingdom Death Monster vibe, we'll talk about that in a second, you may not have all the things that you're looking at now and getting later. And so how do you feel about that, right? That's what worries me, is because you're selling me on this product. Or, on the flip side of things, you're trying to sell me on the idea of something that you don't even know. And again, I kind of worry about that. They said straight up on the first update as well, too. This special edition core pledge, the miniature version one, will not be sold at retail, period. They're going to give you the standee version, which I think, you know what? You go back that, you team standee Liege style up in the comment section, and I think you'll be fine because you're going to get the stretch goals. If you want all of the aesthetics, I mean, you're going to spend well over $200 to get this. They're doing the unlock thing. You know, you're going to get your little stuff here. And the weird thing about this as well, right? They slammed home, or what was slammed home? I can't necessarily say it was them. I'll take that back for a second. What was slammed home was that this is boss battling, scenario driven. We are getting away from the traditional dungeon crawls. And then day one, you have, well, just kidding. This is going to actually give you a little bit of campaign-esque vibes. And don't take my word for it because the description is here, right? Add-on allows rich backstories and motivations for each hunter, more immersive and personalized gameplay experience. I mean, that's marketing lingo 101, right? Because now if I go over to the update here, you get a bigger picture of personal stories here, and they say, quote unquote, campaign element. You know, it reminds me of God of War that Simon just ran, right? They ran it as a 1 to 2 player game, 1 to 2 player game, 1 to 2 player game, 1 to 2 player, until we announced the 3 to 4 player expansion later in the campaign. And it's just like other campaigns and games that say, this is an area control game for 3 to 5 people. Oh, just kidding. We're going to add a solo mode, right? Not everything needs everything. And so I look at this and I go, if you're truly trying to give me a boss battler, I want you to focus on the boss battling, because I'm not going in for that. And you guys are going to say in the comment section already, I know, right? Like you're going to say, well, because you don't need to buy it. Well, I want their focus and their attention on the other elements of things that are driving the main aspects of the boss battlers, not on this in that sense, right? I want more of the thing you're giving me, not trying to branch out to every element and have, you know, a tendril or a paw in every pie, essentially, from that aspect, right? And the other thing I'll say, again, not going to argue value. I'm not going to argue price. I give kudos every time for separating out the miniatures, right? Team standee, but kudos for not making me buy the superfluous miniatures and only having the $109 pledge. There are, at the time of me filming this, 19 videos for Grimcoven on Board Game Geek. And 2 or 3 of these videos that are on this page aren't on Board Game Geek. So there are 20 plus videos, which normally I don't care, right? Like you actually hear me criticize, and I'll talk about it later in the video as well, about the dearth of videos on other games in general. But I'm going to make the argument opposite in this case. The Venn diagram of overlap of these videos with the same prototypes, the same preview, the same playthrough, the same. I give kudos to Alex from Board Game Co., the only actual review, at least at the time of me looking at things on the Board Game Geek page. The only review. And I want opinions, good, bad, or otherwise. But this goes into where I wish some of these folks that are on this page would give me opinions, right? I never want to have opinions that necessarily agree with mine. I love discourse, as in discussion of these things, because what might be a pro for me might be a con for you. But I get the same generic preview description from a lot of these videos, because most preview videos nowadays are giving you Board Game Geek descriptions or elaborated rules descriptions, but not actually giving you personal thoughts. And I want to see more personal thoughts. That's the way I am. Plenty of content right here, right? Plenty of the playthroughs and those sorts of things. But what is Grimcoven? Because if you actually want to know what Grimcoven is on this page, what makes this unique? How are these dynamic elements playing into things, right? Nowhere on the side of me scrolling down this page does it say mechanics, how to play, things that make this unique, right? We go straight from project story, which gives you a little bit of this at the top. But again, this is all just component pictures. You get a little bit of background, super high deluxe, beautiful pictures. And it gives you a little bit of this, right? But does any of this tell you what's different? And I watched Gaming Rules video right before filming this just to make sure I wasn't missing anything, right? It takes the elements of the 2 actions based on die roll systems that you just have to have the symbol match up with the symbol on your board or your action card. And they've got some sort of corruption element that you're picking up elements off of the board and slowly filling your experience bar, essentially, and getting upgrades in the form of a die, an additional die to do the actions or the attacks, or an upgraded ability. But several of the videos, as several commenters have said already on the Board Game Geek forums, are people getting wiped out on turn 4 or around there. So either this prototype is incredibly difficult, or again, like, what are we missing? What elements are we missing? There's 3 levels of enemies: your minions, your elites, and your bosses. And you're going to be managing those on a hex-based grid, variable setup with variable terrain cards, variable element cards, variable token cards, variable gates that you're going to be having to place every single time. And variability is there, but some of the simplicity of a boss battler that I think maybe, again, I won't speak for anybody else, was hoping for, all of the stuff is still sitting on the table to make this more of a complicated. Yes, you're going to have 7 different things that are going to give variability, right? But sometimes less is more. Give me the boss. You know, what I was thinking of when I was hoping for this in my imaginary brain head thing, whatever I'm talking about, right, was Druid Cities, previously coming back at some point in the near future crowdfunding campaign of Bloodstone, where it's literally a freaking arena and you got cool abilities, you got cool manipulation, you got cool abilities, you got cool manipulation, and that's it, right? Streamlined. Not having all of these things that you're having to keep up with. And then as you grab all these ability cards and you've got, 5, as they're saying, ability cards laid out in front of you as you slowly upgrade them all and having to remember which one is which and upgraded abilities here and passives there and, comboing and then grabbing dice that maybe go to you versus assisting your friends if you have that. And then the attacks that you're based off of the KDM Aeon Trespass Odyssey vibe of things. But instead of doing it exactly like that, you see 2 attack cards face up to you, where one of them is going to be the boss's next turn. And then the next one is the next turn after that. And you actually have to deal damage to the attack cards. But if you can't knock them out before he uses that attack, it gets back to put in their deck, and you kind of don't really get a good effect there. You can mitigate some of the damage, but that's also their lifeblood. And as the KDM Aeon Trespass Odyssey is as well. And so you don't do all 6 of the damage that that card needed. Well, you only did 2. Well, you mitigated the damage, but the card goes back in there. You did absolutely zilch in terms of overall effect. And it's only when you take out all those cards do you win. So you have to have all of your coordination go in. So that's great. But is it going to work? Because maybe you don't do the next attack. Maybe you focus everything on the next attack that's up there, the second card, as opposed to the first. So that is what I would like to see on the page. And so I would just like to see a little bit of this. And I mean, they've got, again, this is, you know, special mechanics, devastating ultimate shots, descriptions here. I just don't get the sense of a lot of that here. I think you're doing some cool concepts. Show me more with this. Show me more combat cutting edge technology. Like what? I mean, again, I would hope that some of this is just going to be revealed during the campaign and you'll have all of that information at some point, and they just haven't decided to do that. Again, corruption deck, you're going to have status effects, but I didn't see anything in the preview videos that I watched that really made me go, this is completely different than the stuff I have seen in other games, just now in different combinations. So I guess that is both, as I say with innovation all the time, a blessing and a curse. Because if it's truly innovative, it's scary because it's change and you may not like it even though it's innovative. At the same time, a lot of the recent games over the past years that have been the most well thought of are just slight variable iterations of themes and mechanics that we've seen before. Not necessarily doing something completely differently, but doing it just in a different enough a way that you haven't seen it in that combination. This is the corruption deck. You get your transformations as you slowly improve and you get that more experience. Apparently you lose control as well, depending on how much of that corruption you get. I mean, the aesthetic is awesome. I give Awakened Realms kudos of all of this stuff. You're getting extra bosses, you're getting extra content, you're getting all of the minion manipulation and boss elimination and all of those things. That's just going to be, you know, fantastic. But my worry is just by watching some of the videos so far, because again, one of the videos I watched, it literally said this is a slow grind, knock them away from the boss side of things, right? The thing I love about Cthulhu Death May Die is it's go big or go home, boom, 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 right? And doesn't overstay its welcome. Because I would worry about something like this, where if I want a one-off shot scenario, I think of those as self-contained, which this appears it can do very easily, but I also think of it as not a 3-hour game. Again, that's maybe a misconception in my head more than anything else, and you can tell me what your expectation of this was in the comment section down below as well, but that's where I was thinking. And if this turns into a 2 to 3 hour slog of slowly grinding Dark Souls-esque, you know, again, I have nothing wrong with it because I think that that could be enthralling. Again, it's probably just my perception versus reality, just not lining up with things. So events, again, you're going to have little tiles that get added, environment cards that are going to be here. So there's some of this stuff on there, but again, the big issue here is, you know, they said in one of the videos, you have to be not just moving, but you have to be sprinting, for example, in order to go through the portals. So again, rules like that aren't necessarily as represented on the page makes it hard for me to judge how much that is going to be upkeep wise, how much that's going to be overhead wise. Is this going to be a 30-page rulebook? Is this going to be a 50-page rulebook? Is this going to be a whatever? I have no idea. So again, aesthetically, miniaturely, love it, but I don't know at this point. I want to back it just because I want to be able to cover it on my channel. That's part of my reason for thinking about it right now. But also, I'm not sure I would necessarily love it. And so would I be getting it because I love it? And would I be getting it because I really am just not FOMOing? That's what I'm struggling with right now as a whole at the beginning of this campaign. So I honestly don't know what's going to happen. And I think this Hunter's Pledge right here with a couple of these others, again, you see that this is, you know, a little bit of deluxifications, playmat, miniatures, terrain, acrylics, personal stories, art book. What you don't see though, as we've seen with many of the Awakened Realms, this doesn't say all in. So this is $200. I imagine, as most Awakened Realms campaigns are going to have, probably 3 to 4 expansions that are going to come out between now and the end, because, I mean, how much time is this one actually running? Well, it's running for 3 more weeks at the time of me filming this. I would imagine that you're going to see at least that much content. So I would say that that cost is probably going to balloon even before sun dropping all of those miniatures and all of the extra miniatures that are going to go along with it, probably upwards of $500. And that'd be my question. Is this a $59 game with the standees and the dynamics and the mechanics I would be more than willing to try? Maybe even the $109, depending on, although maybe you just get the playmat instead and you get whatever little mini expansion for nearly the cost of this, with the cost of this with a couple add-ons. That's where I'm looking right now. Because, again, like, some of the best standees give the best table presence. I'm looking at Wonderland's War sitting right over here, right? I love that game's standees because the gray plastic just doesn't encapsulate the theme and the whimsy of that game in the first place. And so as someone who doesn't paint, well, I'm looking at it from that side of things. Is it going to live up to your hype? That's what you have to ask yourself. And honestly, I don't know if this is good, bad, or somewhere else in between. I said this was probably going to raise $3-4 million by the time it ends. Actually, I said somewhere between 3 to 5. But it probably will, because again, I think those add-ons are going to jack it up. Again, I'll say I would have liked to see all of the stuff right at the beginning. But, you know, this is the route that we do on crowdfunding now, is we slowly peel the onion layers away. So we'll see where it ends up. And you know I'm going to talk about it at least once or twice more before the end of the campaign. So there you go. Return to 7th Citadel. Explore. Build. You are the hero. Subtitle tagline of my YouTube channel. You're the hero, not me. A little bit of truth, a little bit of humor there. $500,000. You know, right? Like, none of these games so far this week, well, almost none of these games so far this week are blowing the barn doors off of the barn, right? But all of these are doing really well. If you missed my video from last week, I said June is frickin' here. And that is why, right? This is what Serious Pulp is bringing. Cooperative exploration, choose your own adventure style in a grid-based, card-driven, find your resources, narrative, everything you want. Now, doing a little post-apocalyptic as opposed to Robinson Crusoe with this one, but you're getting it in dialogue, hidden resources, hidden numbers, exclusive expansions here, new threats, as well as new twists. I have this game sitting literally below the table right here because I did the unboxing earlier this week because they sent me a copy to talk about it during the campaign. And I've said in the past, this was not my style of things the first time around, but I'm always interested in being wrong, right? I know you guys on this channel are like vigorously nodding like, oh yeah, he's wrong all the time. He's wrong all the time. And I guess where I was going with that though, is that I would love to love games more, right? You all look at those games and you go, and that's the whole reason you do crowdfunding, right? Is you want to love the idea. You want to love more than the idea of these games in a nutshell. And so it's not like I go into a game like, I don't know, just pick a random one off the top of my head, Ether Fields, for example, and you go, I don't want to like this game. Never, ever have I done that. But, you know, it happens. It happens. You don't like every game. I guarantee you, you've had games you don't like. You thought you were going to like and you don't like. Anyway, where we're going with this. Kickstarter exclusive expansion, all of the comments from all of the big people and all of the stuff that you need, season 1 content. And let me be clear, this is a huge, massive freaking box. And I don't mean that in necessarily size-wise, but weight-wise in terms of physical weight with the amount of cards in there. First new expansion with a new threat. New expansion collector's box. This is very similar to what they did with 7th Continent as well. So the honest answer with this is if you have the base game, you have more than enough, and I guarantee you haven't played it all the way through at the time of this going live. Because there's just so much content in it. And all this other stuff as well. And so it gives you the little bit of narrative view. How much do you care about narrative? I'd make the argument that this is, as it says here, right? Adventure game books. Relive the choose your own adventure. It's not just me putting that, you know, in their mouth. It's them saying it. This is the closest approximation with a cross of Robinson Crusoe, now with dark apocalyptic features, a la, you know, Maximum Apocalypse, Mad Max, whatever you want to call it, cooperative 1 to 4. I'll say, you know what? The last part of that sentence describes it the best. Collective experience. You're not going to be doing things individually. If you want to sit around at a table and collectively do stuff, this is the type of game. If you want to uniquely have your own part in things, this is not your game, right? We've seen other things like that. I won't go Mage Knight, but we'll go something more like Frostpunk, if you will. That is that. Now, is this quick setup and save? We'll see. And is it quicker setup and save? Yes. Gameplay. Get your character, pass along, move along, explore, gather resources, progress, random events, actions, 30 different actions. I mean, that's a barrier to entry that you have to be aware of. You've got a tile skill upgrade, destiny sort of permanent bonus gaining effect, mitigating, if you will, that the first one didn't have. 30 buildings to build. If you watch my unboxing, of course, he picked the dispensary first. Duh. Anyway, sorry. If you want better, more strong opinions, there's a couple videos. And I'll say this, their stuff has been well priced during crowdfunding. So $50 for the new stuff. I mean, that's a lot of stuff though. I'd make the argument that you just get the base pledge. You don't get worried about everything else. And you know what? You're not going to have all of the time, space, or effort for all of the stuff. I could do without the miniatures. I don't think they add anything. I would be happy with just fancy wooden meeples. I think they look better on the table. My own personal preference. And all of the deluxeifieds if you want it. So again, if you know, you know. If you don't know, go check out some videos and go, pick up a copy of Seventh Continent or something along those vibes and see, because you can get those cards for like 30, 40 bucks to see if you like this thing. But there you go. Return to the 7th Citadel. Return to Mythic Battles. Isfet now this time. And again, this one, I'll be frank with you, I think it's underachieving a little bit here at the beginning of the campaign. Not to say that it's not going to break $1 million. Not to say that Monolith puts out anything, subpar product. This is their piece de resistance, to use the French, because they're French. Anyway, I digress. Because this is their main line. This is their main one. This is the one that is the most well thought of. This is the most underlooked, underrated, head-to-head, two-player dueling game with card-driven aspects in the hobby. I'll throw that out there. Fight me in the comment section. The problem is, it's also choose your own army skirmish style. So you have to do like a point sort of situation. And that's a barrier to entry. I don't necessarily like all of the miniatures. I think I would just wager just having lots of more large miniatures and less of the little folk necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Again, I got raked over the comments, Coles and that sort of thing when I did my Mythic Battles Ragnarok unboxing video earlier this year. And truth be told, like, some of the small ones just don't hold up the quality. Some of the small ones don't hold up the visual effect appeal. Some of the small ones don't have the name recognition. And so I don't really necessarily want to use them. I'm not going to say they're bad, right? I'm sure they're, equally important in some of the strategies that you may go. But if you have either one of these base pledges with Ragnarok or with Pantheon, you don't need this one. As far as I can tell so far, there's not anything dramatically differently, extremely important new in this one compared to the other two. It's a pick your own poison. It's a, choose your own adventure. Boom, 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 boom. He did it. Dad joke. Comparatively. And so do you like the aesthetic of the Greek? Do you like the pantheon of the Norse? Do you prefer the Egyptian background? Which one do you want? Because I think your mileage isn't going to vary significantly different. Destroyer box here, you get all three of those in one because they separated those out. So it must be easier to print them all together now with some of these reprint expansions. This was the only ones that I really kind of wanted. Like, I could have foregone probably the base game of Ragnarok with the stretch goals and just gone with this and been really happy. But it's going to cost you about the same as the previous ones. It's going to cost you about $130 to get a base pledge, and you're going to get it for better value. I mean, it sells somewhere between $160 and $200 right now for the core pledges on the secondary market. And that's stayed true with Pantheon too. And some of the harder to get expansions from Pantheon in the first place. And you can sleeve it if you want, ring it if you want, stat it if you want, and it gives you a nice little overview here of how you're getting your units, either in a campaign scenario driven, actually not campaign, adventure mode. I misspoke. Adventure mode, where scenario driven, essentially. Skirmish, you go. Gods, Titans, Heroes, Monsters, Troops. Pick, choose, get a certain amount at certain levels. Your deck, smash all their activation cards together, draw them, activate, battle, last one standing. There you go. Or, well, the other victory condition that you can talk about as well with the Umphalos. And then the dashboards, because you have, as you take damage, your stats all get reduced on the individual units themselves in order to, simulate, hey, you know what? You just got slashed in the arm. You're not as strong. Okay, it actually makes sense. I think the Egyptian miniatures, though, I think they look freaking sweet. Truth be told. And I'm really impressed by them. And the other thing I'll say, The other thing that makes me look on this page, and we'll talk about it, and I'll mention it in other pages right now as well too, when I was looking at a lot of these crowdfunding pages this week, previews are massively, massively, massively rising. And I'm not even sure it's just previews in general versus videos in general, but at least previews are showing up on pages, which brings up an interesting topic, which I'll cover in the news video tomorrow as a rant or a separate video altogether that I've maybe already sort of filmed and maybe sort of haven't aired because it's a little bit controversial and I'm gonna get myself in trouble. I feel like companies are paying bigger channels to preview nowadays instead of not paying them and having them review it, right? Higher reward, less risk. Gonna get myself in trouble with that one. But it just feels like we're seeing more of that. But again, enough of this comes out at retail and review-wise, otherwise, that you can check out some of the older stuff too. So there are reviews for some of the older things. It just seems like the new crowdfunding stuff. You know, again, I worry about scope creep. I worry about complexity. I worry about, is this significantly different? And I would argue that no. But I mean, look at these miniatures. That's cool. That's cool, right? That's not atypical. Now, I'm not a big fan of the bugs and the snakes necessarily, totally. But, well, bugs and not snakes. That's not a snake. That's just cool. If I didn't have both of the other two, I would probably be seriously looking at this. But right now, I can't justify it. I can't justify it. It's one of those games I am saturated out on as much as I want that Destroyer expansion that I just showed you, because I do really, really want that, actually. So, remind me. So then, Apothebakery. Culinary alchemists. You know, I'll put this out there at the beginning because someone's going to comment it. Someone's going to, remark on it. I think this is the flash in the pan. We see this once every month, once every 2 months. Very nice aesthetic, comes out of nowhere, indie style game that gets a lot of money. And then people look at it, see that other people backing it, and then get on it. And so, again, I think this looks very interesting from a design perspective, but make sure you're going into it from an actual I like the gameplay perspective. And you know what? Again, before somebody else says it, Lux Lupo, first time designer, first time company, first time crowdfunder, take that for what you will. I don't say that as a positive or negative. Isaac Childress started as one of those too. So take that for everything that it's worth and everything in between. What you're doing in this game, though, is I believe you have a 3-phase system over 6 rounds that you're going to be managing. And the first phase of things, you're going to be basically playing your fories, not furries. I almost did that. Fories on a turn-by-turn simultaneous reveal as the first phase. And they have stamina values, and you get to play anywhere from 1 to 3, indicating how much stamina that you want to use in the second phase to gather your resources from the decks of cards that are going to be available to you. Then in the third phase of things, you're going to be using those resources to craft elixirs that will then be presented to heroes in order to heal them. Heal them, potentially you get spells that are going to essentially have one-time effects in order to boost you as you go along. And they're also going to have strengths, and these are all the adventurers that you're going to be healing and how much you need to heal them by. But if you don't heal them in time, then they may die, and if they die, everyone has a bad event that happens to them, and you may be able to mitigate it, you may not be able to mitigate it. I'll say with this, again, just like I said with Isfet, there are nothing but just one preview playthrough-ish video, how to play, I believe. And so, again, you're not going to get a great sense of the flow of the rulebook. It is a very well-written rulebook, but again, I would argue that the flow of this game is going to be better encapsulated in motion. So free micro expansion for adventurers in the stack of like 60 or something that you're giving me. So I don't really think that's terribly 65 cards there, 60 resource cards. So, I mean, that's not really a ton comparatively, right? And you each have your own individual alchemy board, again, where you're building these potions from the various slots and resources on here, but sometimes you may fail. You have ones that don't work, and so you maybe get like a special perfect potion, a partial potion, or a completely failed potion, and 2 special great potions combined to a rainbow potion. So you're going to have ways of, well, baking it in. Boom. Side effects for those impure elixirs that I mentioned, secret objectives that you'll slowly be gathering at the beginning of the game. You'll start out with 3 and have the ability to swap them once. And if you want to deluxify it, well, that's why everyone's going out for the bling, because they want to put a ring on it. So again, as I mentioned, forage, alchemy, healing. So I guess I broke the first phase into 2 parts because it felt like that for me. But then alchemy is where you're really doing that after you gather the resources. The resources and the simultaneous reveal are both phase 1. So I'm sorry for messing that up. And then in phase 3, you're healing and trying to prevent them from dying. Otherwise, they do their vengeful wrath thing from death. There's the one preview video that I talked about, and the rule book's right there. No stretch goals. You just get everything upgraded already, and that's what they're giving you. So, boom. That's everything. So if this looks like your ilk, hit the remind me button and see where it's at in 22.5 days from the time of me filming this, not from the time you're watching it. Secret villages and Santa's workshop and story puzzles. Merchants of the Dark Road. Again, one of the biggest first deluxeified Euros that I remember on crowdfunding from Elk Creek here. And I think it was really well thought of at the time, and it sort of died down afterwards. Not a bad game whatsoever, but as a Ramble sort of explorative village-based game with your little wagon going around in these circles, hitting up various locations in a worker placement Euro-style vibe, I think people, again, got really enamored with the look of it rather than, again, focusing on, is this gameplay right for me? Because I remember this one also showing up tons in the secondary market. Again, not as an indication that this is a bad game. People use that sometimes as an indicator for that. And I will not say that. It's that it is a game that a lot of people bought that they shouldn't have bought. It's root, essentially. That's where I'm going with this. You get an expansion, you get puzzles, you get a deluxe expansion, you get Santa's Workshop, which they released, I think, last year in the summer or something. And if you really want everything, you can spend $300 on this. So promo pack, update pack. Ooh, $14. Okay. That's a big upgrade pack for, something as well there. But anyway, new expansion content. They go over the core game. Plenty of people have plenty of great quotes in the core game here. They deluxeified here the numbered box and the bling that's going along in it. It's a heavier-esque Euro game with these elements of things, right? The Secret Villages is actually a little bit more of a modular situation here, where you're gathering these rumors from the different places based on the leads in places like the inn, the excursions, and while going to the Secret Village to gain those bonuses after you get the rumors. Well, the rumors are heard throughout with the Ringway, and you're gaining them, spreading them, and selling in order to provide the extra bonuses that they may provide. Again, preview. That's it though. So again, 3 in a row right there. Take that for what you will. North Pole, thematic, cheerful worker placement game. I think this is a revision of an older game that they made anew. And this one was sort of the fall in between, because I think they've had a couple other of these delayed since then because of just overhead and operational issues. So do you want a 1,000-piece puzzle? You can get that too, right? Board game puzzle, right? Which one of these is not like the other? Anyway, I don't know. I don't have any experience with this game in the first place. Merchants of the Dark Road, it's a little too heavy for me. Didn't end up with a game that I wasn't sure I was going to like. And thankfully, you can get enough information based on the base game and how long it's been out so you can figure out what's right for you. Is this going to make it or break it or even fix the game if you didn't like it in the first place? Again, I'll wager probably not. So check it out and see at your own, wallet. Agemonia! Not off to as hot of start as I would have imagined at this point. Cooperative 1-4, moral-driven, epic open-world campaign game with a companion app. Second printing gets you a little bit more content, new heroes, new events, and new items. 100 hours of gameplay per campaign. 38 scenarios. And, a fall-forward system with stamina chip. Oh boy, I'm leaving that one in there. The only thing I'll say, though, is there's no how to play on this page. There is no what makes this different on this page. There's no rule book on this page. It is dizzed. Just go check out the dizzed. If you want Agemonia's Dice Tower review, they're the only ones that you need the opinion from. So 2 new heroes. Is this going to be more asymmetric here? New content, new components, stronger enemies if it was too easy, and some errata, because I definitely heard the errata comments in the comment section on the Board Game Geek forums. And then also, one-stop co-op shop. So if you don't, listen to anybody else, this says probably my game of the year if you can't read that. So if you're into dungeon crawls, but everything, again, blinged out here is going to cost you, $300 probably close to ship. And is the companion app a make it or break it for you? Map tracking enemy, HP, scenarios, story points, achievements. I'll make the argument that I wish Youthia had one, to be frank with you guys. There are a lot of things that I think this can be useful for, but I know a lot of people in our hobby are anti anything electronic to go with them. So that'd be the question I'd ask you. Is that really a hard line for you or not? A little bit of expansion content here with extras, blings, deluxeified miniatures, sun dropping. This is the only how to play on there, though. It's the official how to play. And yeah, that's it. That's about all we got going on here. A couple other reviews and a couple previews in terms of stuff. Daily unlocks, which is going to be the main reason you might want to get it. But again, like, there's nothing on this page, and I think that's probably why it's not getting as much money. Because if you just came across this randomly and it was like, okay, here's the new dungeon crawl, and it's like, okay, what does this dungeon crawl do? Because, you know, when I say moral choices, cooperative, expansive storyline, scenarios, hours of gameplay, there's nothing there that just helps me distinguish it if I'm a lay person coming across this game in the first place, right? And so that's my fear with this one. So I'd like to see more on the page about that aspect of things, but that's just me. So either way, it's well thought of. You can check out those reviews, as I mentioned, to hear them talk about it too. Check it out. Yokai Septet Pocket Edition. I think I'm going to end up with a copy of this. You know, I just talked about my love for Trick Takers last month. I just talked about my love for Faraway. And this is just a reprint from Ninja Star Games. And I remember reaching out to Dan over on Twitter, and these things fall through the cracks sometimes. But I remember talking to him about this game. Essentially, it's just a trick taker in teams, and you play the first one to get 7 points. Points are based on the boss monster yokai that you are winning in said tricks, because they're the number 7, which means that they're not the highest, they're not the lowest number in each of the suits, but you want to win them. And so when you choose to win them, how you choose to win them is going to be important. But also, you don't want to get too many tricks, because if you take 7 tricks on your team of, you know, 4 players, but you can also play, there's a 3-player variant. If you take 7 tricks, your team loses. So you need to get 4 of the yokai to win, and then get the points scored off those yokai, because they have little white stars in them indicating how many points they're worth. Or if the other team gets 7, you take the yokai that they didn't play and add them into your scoring as well. And then whichever team gets that, well, then you win. 3-player variants it up just slightly, because then the boss yokai actually have black stars as well as the white ones that get utilized, again, for a different scoring. Otherwise, it's a straightforward trick taker, I think, for the most part, with just that little twist. So, I mean, it just seems cool. It just seems straightforward. And it's something that I could see my family playing, because it doesn't, you know, take trick takers and, well, really just make it overly complicated, overstay your welcome. And so if you don't believe me, go to Taylor's trick taking table right here, watch his video, and he gave it his trophy seal. So again, don't listen to me. Anyway, congrats, Ninja Star Games, Dan, Yokai Septet. There you go. Back over to Game Found. Buddy boom! This is a manipulatable, spatial-driven card aspects of making your opponents move their little tokens, their pieces here, across the card-driven gameplay, and grab the bunnies as they're going across. And the interesting cross-based situation they have here is that you only use the horizontal row if you're playing 2 players, you use the top part 2 up here if you're playing with 3, and spatially you can use all 4 directions if you're playing with 4 players, and where you can place cards. And you're placing these cards down, and they have 3 aspects on the cards. On the lower left, it's the when played ability. In the middle, it's the river ability. And then the right side of it's anytime someone passes or lands on this card, this is what happens. Oftentimes, you're just grabbing bunnies. And you have a couple variants that go along with it that add a little bit of a slight complexity in terms of the cards and the tokens to go there. Carrot token just moves across, and you give it to somebody. You force someone to move where you want to place it. And then they get the carrot token, which gives them 4 extra bunnies at the end of the round or game if they have it. And then the fox token basically does the same thing. It moves across and causes people to, you know, have to go to them and get bunnies from that aspect. And then the burrow token, again, if you have the burrow, then anytime someone crosses a burrow, you get to give them one of your bunnies. And you get the bunny boom, which just puts a bunny on every single card out there. Anytime they cross it and bunny's sitting on there, you get it. Really nice playmat. I just passed it on to the next reviewer that's going to have it here in a few days, probably at the time of you guys watching this video. And ooh, look at that. You've got a little promo pack to go along with it. A new river, a new mayor, and a new joker, which is just what I said in my video. Like, I could use a little bit more of this cool stuff. And so there you go. That addresses my main issue with it in the first place. So yeah, check it out. Artwork's kind of nice. And I just think this is a nice, light, fun game. As I mentioned, you play a card, activate the effect, move your villager to that card. Anything you cross over, you have to activate, add your bunnies, and then also get rid of your bunnies as well. Rulebook's there, really straightforward from Ruse Games. And what's the price point for it? I don't actually know. If you want 12 of them, though, you can pay $350. Okay, 50, and then one copy without the neoprene playmat, the punch board, and the extras. Well, it's only going to cost you 40. So, well, I mean, that's probably either a wait for retail or deluxify bling the heck out of it. It's a nice, light, family style game. It is. So other people can talk about it there more in depth. Mine's not on the page because I was late getting my video out, truth be told. So if you want to check it out, I'll throw the link maybe above. But otherwise, I mean, Ruse Games doing a great job. I mean, it's going to be funded by the time you guys are filming this. So there you go. Now we're talking about sleeper hit of the week here. I'm going to call it right now. Nawalli, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Aztec-based card-driven lane battler, 2-player asymmetric with drafting and pre-constructed sets, depending on how you want to do it, for the $100. I was about to say $42,000, and 69 people backing it. But I'm going to put it on your radar so you can check it out as well. And it's a lane battler, right? You have 4 lanes as you go head to head, trying to connect the life force of your opponent with a real Aztec theme, drawing, and research done for this one as you're slowly summoning these creatures based off of like a Summoner Wars-esque vibe, only mixed with more of a Sky Tier Horde, if you will, with the lanes as opposed to a grid-based system. And so essentially what you're doing is you have 5 cards in your hand, a combination of both the spell cards and the creature cards. And you're going to be using a combination of those because you draw back up to 5 at every single round, and you're going to be gathering energy, 3 energy every turn except for the first couple, because again, balancing issues and attacking what you can get out and first player advantage and that sort of thing. But then eventually getting 3 per turn that you can utilize, sacrificing a card to the burn pile if you want to get extra, and then slowly summoning these creatures who have the ability to attack right away. Where the crux of this game comes in is that it has a whole bunch of unique abilities to go along with it. You can summon on top of your cards already to basically merge them or combine them, if you will. But then you can also have different abilities on the bottoms of the cards, and that is where, as Space Biff's review, because don't listen to me, right? Go read Space Biff's review, which is on Board Game Geek, as well as linked to down below. Shut Up and Sit Down talked about it in their small box games to be aware of as well. So don't even listen to me whatsoever, but this is a 2nd edition, and the big issue was that a lot of this iconography was, again, a little bit of a slog to get through, but they're cleaning it up, they're making it better, and hopefully it's a little bit easier to remember, understand, and, well, keep up here, if you will. Updated rulebook and flanking abilities and spell cards, all given upgrades. And with this one, you get an adventure mode and a free-for-all mode. I'd probably still play this 2-player as a whole. And then they run you through the background of the history of this game and the mythology in the first place. And the design features, like it says, minimalistic, easy to pick up and play. A little bit of a how to play video there, how you're doing this in terms of laying the cards down as a whole. You have a guardian that you can summon a la your Star Wars Unlimited, if you will, sort of where you can summon them once per battle for a certain amount of energy. 5, you have your Nawals. I'm probably mispronouncing that again, I apologize. 64 unique ones, and you're only drafting something like, I think like 9 or so of these at the beginning of the game to make up your deck. So your decks aren't even that big. And then you're enhancing it with all of the spells that are going to be available to you from an asymmetry standpoint. Like I said, collect, summon, attack every single time, and that's how you get the life force, and that's how you win. And then, well, rinse, repeat, draw back up and go. Shapeshift, like I mentioned, casting spells and equipping items. Playthrough videos there, solo mode as well, if we scroll down here, and then it shows you everything else. Right here are the ones, they link to them. You can just click on them and don't listen to me and go there. So again, it's a little expensive, as you can see above my head right here, $45 for a 2nd edition, but it's an indie game that you've probably never heard of that will probably should never show up at retail. So that's why you do it. And is this one that you're willing to do? So again, we talked about the price point, a holographic promo card. Okay, not the biggest, but again, a couple more stretch goals for promo cards, a little bit of advanced content if you want from that aspect of things, but nothing that's probably going to make it or break it. And if you're going with the higher pledge levels, if you're in the US, well, free shipping. So $45 with free shipping. Okay, there you go, Chris. So that's it. That is what's going on there. And give it a look-see. Tell them Liege sent you. And next game. The other surprise sleeper of the week here is Operation Barclay from Salt and Pepper. $12,000 of an $8,000 funding goal, and something you should check out if you're interested in a head-to-head sort of bluffing style, press your luck, poker-esque, hand-driven cards game. And what I mean by that, even though that didn't come out completely right there, I'm leaving that in there for posterity's sake. What you're going to be doing, though, is you're going to have these cards that are going to be available to you, and you're basically laying them down on a turn-by-turn basis, trying to create the best quote-unquote hand of 5 cards by the end of the round. And you rinse and repeat this over, I believe, 6 different times rounds, as you then, as one player at the beginning of the game, lay down your markers on the board, and where you're going to be laying your offensive markers, where your attacks are essentially going if you're that player. The other player is going to be slowly trying to win the ability, the chances, the intelligence tokens to flip these over in order to find it. And if they can find the advances of where you're trying to attack by the end of the 6th round, then they win. If they can't, you win. And so essentially what you've got going on is you've got 3 ways that you're going to be winning it on a turn-by-turn, round-by-round basis. One, if you have the best hand, you're going to get some of those tokens either to get more chances to find them or to block the other person. The second way of winning those same things on a hand-by-hand basis is that after the 3 cards have been played of the 5-card tableau that you're building in front of you, you get to bet on who you think you or your opponent is actually going to have the best hand. And so if you are the one who bets correctly, then you get those tokens as well. And then there is a whole separate evidence box of tokens that's going to be going to a certain person depending on how you do in a third element of that hand in the first place. And you just do that 6 times, like I mentioned. There's enough video content right here. As I mentioned, the intelligent assessment, these are the 3 ones that you're placing. This is saying that after you've played 3, you bet who's going to have the best one. All the cards are turned face up. Results determined. Here it is. The player with the most reconnaissance raid icons in their hand wins that token from the evidence one, and that's the 3rd one. As I mentioned, evidence tokens correspond to sectors, and then you either get to, well, turn an intelligence token in the corresponding sector face up, or if they win, then you can limit the tokens that they can turn face up as well. So, I mean, it seems like a little bit of a variation of just something that's kind of clever, kind of cool. So a little promo to go along with it, a 20-page rulebook to check out. Here's some quotes from everybody that can go check out additionally to give you opinions. And that's it. There's another little game here called Thingstead, but I'm leaving it at that with Operation Barclay. So straightforward, straight to the point. What's actually the price point for this one? Because I did not see that. Let's see, Operation Barclay. It's $24. Okay, not too shabby. So promo cards, we'll get them if they get more things unlocked. Thingstead, and I didn't know Salt and Pepper put out a Reliable Wizard. That's how much I remember things. I knew I'd heard that name before. So if you like what they put out previously, well, give them a look-see with Operation Barclay. Tiny tables, you know how I feel about tables on crowdfunding, right? What is this? A board game table for ants? Sorry, I just couldn't help myself with this one, right? Miniature board game table. It seems more ornamental than practical, I guess, is kind of what I get the initial vibe of. And they say it's not going to be found in a higher quality, but is it actually really helpful? Is it like a kneeling table? What are the dimensions of it? How does it? Oh, okay, so there you go. It looks like that. So it's just a little table to put on your table. Okay. I mean, if this was like $50, I'd be okay with this, but I'm guessing, yeah. Oh, actually, that's not too bad at all. 75. I still probably wouldn't pay for it because, again, like you almost need chairs to go up higher because I'm tall, but like chairs are low. So anyway, you know what I'm saying. But something like this, I would want to see hands-on. I say that with all the table stuff. I need hands-on. I don't buy furniture, over the internet. I go and I test it out because, if you've been sofa shopping, if you're an adult and you've been sofa shopping, you know that you just don't always like the sofa that you're looking at that looks nice, that until you sit down in it, you go, oh, well, never mind then. So that's what I worry about with furniture in general. And that table-wise is no different here, but check it out. Next up, Mind Turtle. It's a blast. It's truth or dare with pushing a button. Have you ever seen those YouTube videos, those viral videos where guys are filling up a cup of water under a sink? And basically you go until someone loses by spilling the cup over as they're putting water in. And so as they get close to the very top, they're trying to do it really quick just to kind of get the smallest of small drops on there without it falling over. That's what this game is, only with cards and truth or dare. So you just, have someone do a truth or dare, and if they can do it, then they force you to push the button. And if you fail, then you have to push the button. And then if it explodes when you're pushing it, you lose. That's the game. That's everything there. 120 missions, a little bit of extra content if you want extra cards. I mean, it's a party style game. Do you want that as well? That's what you're getting here. Somehow it's already, I would assume from more of an engineering standpoint, not going to be delivered until sometime mid next year. and it's going to cost you $30 plus shipping. There you go. I'm leaving it there. My internal. Next up, Pillar of Hercules, Awaken the Legends, 1 to 4 player. Now, Rado actually calls it a 4X. I don't really know how that always works from that side of things, but it takes a deck building, area control, movement style actions with some rondels that you're going to be utilizing in order to do all those actions. It reminds me a little bit of Path and Light and Shadow, if you will, with the combination of the deck building and the area control. But essentially what you're doing is you're going to have one of 3 different ways to win as you move your little pieces around the rondel here, taking one of, I believe, the 5 different actions, having 6 different tracks that you're going to be managing or trying to move up and play until, or someone controlling 6 cities, or going through and having like 3 epic phase quests essentially finished by the end of the game. And I mean, I guess if you want to get it right here, it says, right, like you get a 5th player if you're going to get it on crowdfunding. That's a major reason. So I'll be honest with you, the rule book here looks relatively straightforward, and you look down at the bottom and you go, oh, Chris, it's only 11 pages. Chris, that's a really easy read. And then you go, wait, Chris, you have that zoomed out, right? No, I have this zoomed in regularly. Okay, like zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. This thing is absolutely chock filled full of text. So this may look like 11 pages, but that is a whole mountain of text on the page as just something to be aware of. So I think it's a lot heavier than its appearances may be, at least in terms of learning it. As you create your city states, your hero tiles, your units, your sieges, your tracks that I mentioned, the resource gatherings, the area control, as you move your pieces around and you manipulate your rondel, and you can get deluxified miniature version essentially if you want, and you can even get it colored if you want extra amount. So, I mean, again, I don't have a great sense of how this flows, but if it's a 4X and you have interest in the combination of that with deck building, I guess watch Rado's video. They've got a few stretch goals that are getting unlocked here, and this is gameplay content, so take that for what you will if you're interested. Again, social stretch goals, we'll get to the game overview here that I mentioned, area control, deck building, resource management, and the mechanics as a whole, right? The rondel, procure, deploy, build, settle, ascend. Each choice shapes your strategy and the expansion of your empire. It runs you through the mechanisms there, it gives you a few more quotes, it tells you about your city-state and the mythos behind it. And then it says, okay, well, what are you doing? Status check again with some of these beginning of turn aspects, how you're advancing the rondel there, choosing your actions as you move around. And then it gives you a brief overview of said 5 actions in the first place. Again, the region tracks, removing population tiles and pillars, building, constructing your buildings and cities in the first place, deploying to the board with the area control mechanism, fulfilling prophecies, well, and the era 3 prophecies. You have to have 3 of them, right? So then you go, rinse and repeat. Check out these videos. Again, a rulebook is right there, tabletop. Check it out online. I think you're going to have to watch something, though. The rulebook is dense. It's dense. I'm not the right person to give you that overview, but they're laying it all out here for everything that you might want to know. What's the other one that I'm completely blanking on? The Atlas expansion. It was a remake of one of the older Civ building games that kind of flew under the radar. It was one of my first Kickstarters, actually. Mare Nostrum Empires. That was the name of the game. I had to go look it up, and edit that part out of the video. But it gives me those vibes, if you will, with slightly different mechanics. I have no idea. You can tell me in the comment section what you think of this one. Is it worth it? Is it doing something differently enough? This one's outside of my depth, and I'm gonna just mea culpa on that one and give you a look-see so that you can figure it out. Kickstarter, stop it, you're drunk again. Okay, what else we got going on? Dabba, Walla, Queen Games. I'll give them kudos. This one actually looks like it's just a relatively intriguing twist on the Copenhagen Helsinki style vibe with the tile laying. Only in this case, you're actually not just building a grid, you're actually building up. Because these Dabba Wallas, which are meals you're delivering, what you do is you all take simultaneously one of the 4 different boards that are going to be offered to you of a grid-based situation that you can place tiles on. And there are different shapes and configurations that you can get and use to give each game a little bit of variability. And so the game is divided up into 2 phases, a first phase and a second phase, and it's divided up into cards as well, how they're going to be utilized. The tops of the cards are going to give you these tiles that you're going to be gathering. The bottoms of these cards are going to be used in the second phase to manipulate the value of the colors of the tiles as you go. But what you're doing is you're slowly building these layers as you're putting the tiles down. Not only do you not have to necessarily cover, but you can actually just build them on top and on top and on top and on top and on top. And then once everyone has done that 13 times, then you take those cards that you just played and you utilize these values to manipulate the value of them in the first place on the tracks that will correspondingly give you victory points for each of these layers. So you can see as you play them, everybody plays one per round and it changes the values of these. So you get to then, again, layer by layer, manipulate the values depending on what may be better for you and what may be, well, not as good for other people. And then you go until it ends. And so you go until all of the layers have been colored and counted. Higher up layers, bigger sizes are going to give you more points. And there you go. That's, everything. Dabba Walla. Now, the other thing that you don't see is the fact that, oops, just kidding, down here hiding is Graffiti. And Graffiti is a graffiti mural-based set collection, a little bit of worker placement style vibe, where you have to complete a certain number of these murals pieces by getting your spray cans, getting resources, getting permits to spray them, and then utilizing that in order to score several of them in order to, well, do it faster, quicker, and more aesthetically pleasing than your opponents. Again, the rulebooks on both of these are on the page as a whole. Not a whole lot of video content, but a little bit of how to play. So I'll be honest with you, Dabba Walla actually looks a lot better. It looks like a game I could play with my kids at a relatively family-friendly, fun style of things. So I give them kudos, and you know what? I've been critical of them in the past, but this one looks pretty good. The question is, do I really want to get it on crowdfunding? That'd be my bigger concern. At the same time, Queen really hasn't gone to distribution at all recently. I think they've basically said they're not doing it anymore. So to be frank, it's probably a better price as well because they really stick by their MSRP if you have to go to their shop and buy it later. So there you go. Then we're going over here, Fluffy Dragons. I mean, this is like a slightly different version of BS, if you will. It's got slightly, upgraded mechanics at the same time because you have this elemental board and you have these 5 different suits that you're going to be utilizing. And you play one card face down, and then you put one of your little creatures on the area of the resource that matches it. Or does it? Because if it doesn't, you still gather that resource, but someone can call BS on you because that's what this game will do. Because you can also then steal gems on people who are, in a certain direction around the rondel in front of you in order to then, wager and get more of them in the end that you get victory points with. So that's the game. Do you want deluxeified little tokens to actually go along with it, or do you want to get immortalized enamel pins and a fluffy dragon? So you can get all sorts of other stuff to go along and a few stretch goals, a few videos down here, and well, that's everything you need to know from Lamp Games. It's funded almost 150% at this point, so $11,000. Check it out. Then we're going to go over here and talk about X Seekers of Fortune adventure card game. Again, $11,000 at the time of me filming this. And this is a set collection style game. It's got a different vibe aesthetically, but it's at its heart a straightforward set collection style game with a little bit of a different end game winning condition, if you will. We'll talk about it in a second. Basically, you have variable player power cards that come in 3 forms, like your instants, your passives, and your long-term constant effects. And you have one of those in your hand, and you can draw them if you can after completing adventures. Adventures are just set collections. You get 3 of them face up in front of you, and you can choose any of them to complete as you draw these resource cards in one of the several different actions on your turn that you can take. The X cards are those asymmetric ones that I just talked about. So 4 different suits of leads that they call them, essentially, that you're completing with these cards right here, as you can see, set collection style-wise. Gives you rewards down here, 3 leads and 1 action, so the action cards and the lead cards, and the heroic feats, the action abilities, and just a little bit of asymmetry in that sense. So it's going to be heavily draw dependent. It's going to be, very light in that style of things. So that's just what you're doing, right? You're taking your turn by drawing the adventure cards, playing your lead cards, taking your actions that are going to be available to you in terms of potentially drawing more, discarding, or even drawing them from the discard in the first place before you then utilize them to complete your actions. The difference here at the end of the game that I was mentioning a second ago was that after you complete 4 of these, it takes 5 to win. But after you complete 4 of them, you have to actually discard any cards remaining in your hand. You have to flip up 3 adventure cards, 3 quest cards, if you will, 3 set collect options. And then your opponents pick the one that you have to complete of the 3 of them. And then you draw 3 of those set collect cards. So it's kind of really random. And does that amount of take that or randomness suit you or not? So a little bit of stretch goals there as well, a little extra art, a little bit of extra content. And that's it. Again, there's enough stuff down here at the bottom. Again, video, shipping, launch boom. And again, $11,000 at the time you're filming this, so check it out. That's the roundup this week. What else we got going on? Well, not a whole lot else. I'm working this weekend, so I got to deal with that. And I'm missing my kid's last soccer game. I'm a little disappointed. Missing the 10-year-old's last soccer game. I didn't get to watch him last weekend either because I mentioned we had the two games in opposite directions, and just didn't work out. So that's all I got. Otherwise, I just got some stuff in the mail today when I'm filming this. I got the new game from Daily Magic Games, Castellians, and then I just got. Ooh, I should have brought it in here for the video. The prototype versions of Icor and Iliad from Bitewing, which is launching, I believe, at the end of this month as well. So I'm really excited by those. And then this upcoming week, I will also have my thoughts on Mighty Boards and their Knizia tile layer. I have a type style game with Rebirth. So I have one board, and they're sending me, at the time of me filming this, the other board. So this weekend I'll have the second board and we'll get it. And then, last spoilers, you know what? I got an email today saying I will have ARCs this weekend if I'm, at all on time in terms of mail delivery. So, which is shocking. I'm usually at the end of crowdfunding deliveries, not towards the beginning. So maybe unboxing this next week. Would you want to see that? Maybe with all three of those games? 4 games, but 3. I don't know. So that's all I got. It's been a busy week. Kids off school for the first week and them staying busy and car in the shop, and who knows? It's just going to be June, right? Just June already. It's going to fly by. All of a sudden, it's going to be July. It's going to be July. July's going to be August. And all of a sudden, the kids are going to be back in school. My kid's going to be a 5th grader. My kid's going to be a 3rd grader. It's going to be crazy. My kid's going to go to preschool. Oh, man. I just, no. This summer needs to go by slow. Needs to go by slow. That's all I got. Have a great freaking day. Good Friday. See you around. You Team Siege